It is the season, that time of year where we're all dreaming about white Christmas, and you can feel in the atmosphere itself. The stores are excited, people are excited, they're shopping, they're going everywhere. But we would be remiss if we did not remember the classic movie, A White Christmas. And here today, without further delay, we have with us Heather French Henry, a former Miss America, and her husband, Dr. Steve Henry, who also was a former lieutenant governor here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And both of them have a project that I want to share with you. It's the Rosemary Clooney House and its iconic White Christmas Museum. First of all, Heather and Steve, how are you guys?
Great.
Oh, we're great. Wonder. I thought you were going to introduce him as, and also the Mr. America.
That's her dad anyway.
Right. I should have gone there. And Heather, in all fairness, you've done so much more than Miss America. But I love saying that because that's quite an accomplishment in your life.
It is a term of endearment. I did a tremendous amount of work and still do for our nation's veterans, and especially bringing that back home to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and eventually becoming the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, which I'm equally as proud at having served, certainly in that capacity. So Miss America is still a pretty good title to have.
And I said this off camera, but I love being able to say, I know a Miss America. How many of you guys on YouTube can actually say what I can say? And I love saying that. So I'll always say that to my friend.
We're
Heather
a little bit like an
Fenton.
urban legend, right? People know we exist, but they rarely get to meet one. But it really, it's interesting. That year really is how I got hooked up with Rosemary Clooney, because our families were all from the same area of Augusta and Maysville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I knew the Clooneys, George and his mom, Nick and Nina, and his sister Ada. But Rosemary was still on tour in the latter part of her life, and it wasn't until I won Miss America, and she was the second phone call I received after winning. You can guess who was the first. we were dating, so yeah, he called to congratulate the Miss Kentucky who became Miss America. But Rosemary was the second, and she proceeded to call me once a week, every week for that entire year. I got a chance to see her perform. I performed with she and Debbie Boone, her daughter-in-law. And so that's really how all of this started, in getting Rosemary Clooney's house in Augusta, Kentucky. She was born in Maysville, and then moved to a house in Augusta in 1980. And I did the opposite. I was born in Maysville, or born in Augusta, then moved to Maysville.
So you're crisscrossing each other's paths.
So we did. Yeah. We crisscrossed each other, but she was really concerned that a small town girl from her, hometown area might get lost in translation in the busyness of the entertainment industry, and having become Miss America. So she was quite a guardian angel and a mentor to me. So when she passed away, her family reached out to us, and we purchased her home, thinking it was going to be a second home for us.
Right.
But of course, everything led to the next, and it wound up that now it's a 100% museum to the life and legacy of Rosemary Clooney, which includes, of course, the famous White Christmas costume collection.
Yeah, and it's 100%. It's a nonprofit foundation headed by you and Steve, of course. And the foundation was established to actually preserve Rosemary Clooney's house, and it's open to the public and memorabilia, which we'll talk about in a moment. But you guys, that's actually a physical house that people can go in and tour.
It is, and it was an opportunity to buy something in Heather's little hometown, and we enjoyed the first year that we were there, off and on. We never walked on the sidewalks; we always walked in the streets, and so it's a wonderful little town. I think that it's been rated as the top 10 things to see in Kentucky historically.
Oh, wow.
And so we wanted to add to that. And the Lieutenant Governor's mansion, while we were there, was the oldest official residence in the country at the time. Now it's no longer a residence. And so we were used to people being in the house. And so we thought it was just a wonderful thing to open up the bottom. And we did that 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
That we established it. And then, but White Christmas is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
And it tells all I remember my dad coming back. He went into the Navy right at the end of World War II. I remember him talking about not being home for Christmas. And it really impressed upon me the importance of our military being thanked and appreciated, because they miss a lot of Christmases and Thanksgivings.
Yes.
And those are memories that they'll never have with their children. So it talks about our veterans not being home. It appreciates that. And it also talks about Christmas and the importance of Christmas. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for us to just start that collection. And
Yeah.
our first items we got
Yeah.
probably from Paramount
Yeah.
as a partnership with Paramount Studios about 18 years ago. And
Wow.
it's
Wow.
expanded since then.
Well, before we get to the movie, you also have two other draws, two other displays in the house, which are might be of interest, which I'm sure are of interest rather. One is George Clooney. He has two. George Clooney has two costumes there. One from Leatherneck, and the other one from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Is that right?
Well, you know, it's interesting. So, Leatherheads actually, the
Leatherhead, yes.
football, yeah, movie, that actually is on display now at the Fraser History Museum in Louisville,
Ah.
Kentucky. We've lent that out to them. We like to do a lot of cross cooperation with other
Hmm.
museums and entities. And they had on display the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And then we finally got that back in the museum. So you can see that, certainly. We also have Monuments Men, which is a
Hmm.
really important and I think maybe underappreciated film that's based on the true story of the battalion that went in to find the artwork that was stolen by the Nazis in World War II. And they
Yes.
really had to beat the Russians to it. Although we were allies in World War II, you know, I think we
Yeah.
were sort of like um, allies on the surface, but I think there was a lot of undercurrents. And so they were trying to beat the Russians in getting those artifacts found and brought back to safety. And certainly
Yeah.
they did that. And so that was a really excellent film of George's. And then, of course, we've got a plethora of his other movies that we rotate things in and out of: The American, Ides of March, Up in the
Hmm.
Air, The Descendants. So we
Yeah.
try to show 2 to 3 items of George's. And those are sort of our rotating collection. And then we also have other movies of Rosemary's. We have The Stars Are Singing, which was her first movie. She premiered in 1953, that she
Hmm.
actually premiered in Maysville, which was
Okay.
awesome.
Wow.
And we also have Red Garters, which is a little known Western musical. She plays a actress or a character named Calaveras Kate, a saloon owner. And then we also have Here Come the Girls,
Right.
which she co-starred with Arlene Dahl, Tony Martin, and Bob Hope. And
Hmm.
so that's on top of the White Christmas collection. So we feel like we've built a pretty well-rounded collection of her movie career. And
Hmm.
so continuing always to add items, not only of hers, but also her co-stars.
And she mentioned Bob Hope, and
Yeah.
he's one of my real heroes.
Yeah.
And we've got 3 of his items, 3 of his costumes from her movie, and those came from Debbie Reynolds. And
Oh.
it was when those went up for auction. She corresponded. We talked on the phone about those items, and she was very pleased that they were coming to Rosemary's.
Well, when you talk about that, that brings up so many good memories, especially for my audience, right? All of us remember those films of Bob Hope entertaining the troops. The what are the
The
ISO or
USO, the USO.
USO? Yeah,
Yes.
USO. Bringing a taste of home to foreign shores, and what a true testament he was, and part of the war movement, keeping our soldiers and sailors
Absolutely. And his entire
engaged.
life. And we have a
His
lot of
entire
Miss
life.
Americas.
That's right.
Yeah, a lot of Miss Americas actually traveled. I did not, unfortunately, get a chance to do a USO show with him, but before me, there were several of my Miss America sisters that they themselves did USO shows, and some of them actually participated with Bob Hope. So, what a tremendous legacy to bring together. Bob
Yeah.
Hope and Rosemary were great friends, as was Bing Crosby. And it was really Bob Hope and Bing Crosby that helped Rosemary kind of get back on her feet and
Hmm.
get back into singing and performing in the latter years of her life. So she had a great support system in those 2 men.
Well, and Bob had actually, and Dolores had come to their wedding.
Hmm.
So they've been to Rosemary's house.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of important history. A lot of important folks have been to that house.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the house, because this is your passion, Steve and Heather. And Steve, a moment ago, before we talk about the movies, you mentioned a collaboration with Paramount Studios to retrieve a lot of the artifacts from movies, including White Christmas, correct?
We still
Some.
collaborate with
Hmm.
them, and
Okay.
now it's a minority of the costumes that we have. As Heather mentioned, George has probably contributed 30 costumes. He and his co-stars, which include 5 Academy Award winners. But at the same time, we've done a lot of
Hmm.
collecting, and so Paramount probably has 5 items now at the museum. And initially, when we started this, 5 items was half of our collection.
Well, when we actually bought the house, we had actually contacted Paramount about a month before I was doing a
Right.
show, and they the director wanted me in a red dress like Rosemary's and White Christmas, and I had reached out to Paramount, and that's how we first made contact. Although I had done some work, and both of us knew people at Paramount, but that
Mhm.
was the first time that they had an aha moment of, we don't know where anything is from White Christmas. In fact,
Seriously?
yeah, well, in the
Yeah.
70s, 80s, and 90s, lots of the studios had sold off thousands of pieces of their
Yeah.
collections to
Yeah.
make room because those studio lots are a little landlocked out there. And it really wasn't till 99, 2000, kind of getting into the new millennium, that studios started realizing the monetization of their collections. And
Mhm.
so we're really proud that our initial reach out helped to start a movement at Paramount to really create a costume archive. And the
Mhm.
gentleman who is involved in that actually is from Ohio,
Yeah.
Randy
Really?
Robb, who has got a pretty big name in costume collection and archiving. And so we've really partnered with them. It was about a month after then the show,
Mhm.
I called them back and said, hey, we just purchased Rosemary's. Did you ever find anything? And that's
Mhm.
when they found the Blue Sisters fan. And even at that point, we thought we'll just have one or two things. We'll have the
Yeah.
house open during the holidays. And it just was like a snowball effect. And then collectors find out you have things, and then auction houses. There's some really big auction houses that are noted for costume collections with cinematic collections. And so we have privately purchased now a majority of the collections. And this is why this project is called a passion project.
Mm.
A lot of my birthday presents are in that house.
Yeah, it's
Birthday
pretty funny when
presents.
an auction comes up and Steven will be like, "Hey, for my birthday, there's another costume up for our auction." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
We're going to talk a little bit about your two things we want to talk about. One is how you have collaboration with other museums, and secondly, we're going to talk exactly about Columbia Inn, Pine Tree, Vermont set. But before we do, we have to say thank you to dplfp.com for making Aging with Grace 55 plus even possible. We appreciate their support, and their counselors are standing by to help you with all of your financial needs at dplfp.com. A moment ago, you mentioned that you have collaboration with different museums. And I understand the White Christmas is now on tour in Nebraska Museum. Is that correct?
It's in Omaha,
Oh,
and
Omaha, Omaha,
next year
Omaha,
in
Nebraska.
Omaha,
Yeah,
Nebraska.
at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Durham
Okay, good. Okay.
Museum.
It's a long box truck travel to Omaha.
10 and a half hours up, 10 and a half
Oh
hours back.
no.
But,
Do I
It's a
hear the voice?
glamorous life.
Do I hear
but
the
we
voice of experience with you and Steve driving that truck?
absolutely we find it important that we keep our eyes on the collection and take care of it. And so we drive it wherever it's going. Next year, go to South Carolina. It was Oshkosh a couple years ago.
Oh,
And so it goes around the country. And so we take it in a box truck, and that is the furthest we have been. But we expect we'll have more distances to go in the future. But it's important because 10,000 people, over 10,000 people saw it last year up in Covington.
10,000 people.
Department of Tourism in Kentucky
Wow.
has really asked us to keep it close every so many years. This year we divided what was not used in Omaha, Nebraska in Ashland, and is currently on exhibit in Ashland, and also a few items are in Owensboro at those museums. So we try to spread it around
Oh,
as much as possible. And it's worked for us. It's been
yeah.
a very
Well, one of
successful
the
pattern.
benefits is that we realize that there's going to be thousands of people who may never come to Augusta, Kentucky. I mean, we love Augusta. It's 1,400 people if you count the cats and the dogs. It's a lovely
Yes, it
Americana
is.
little town.
Yes, it
But we
is.
do realize that in the winter months that it can create a lot of economic impact for other museums as well around the
Mhm.
country. And that's
Mhm.
what we really have found out. So from about November 1st through the end of February, that's when it actually is actively traveling. And then we get a chance to semi-close down the Rosemary Clooney house for any needed repairs, which when you're a house museum, there are plenty, and
Right.
especially on the river, there are
Yeah.
plenty of needed repairs and things that need to be done, a little TLC. So we open back up April 1st,
Mhm.
and then the collection comes back home to Rosemary. So at some point it comes home, it's there for a long duration, but always during the holidays from November through about February, it's traveling so that thousands of other people will get a chance to enjoy and celebrate one of the most beloved holiday classics.
I absolutely love it. And Steve mentioned, Steve, this is your song. This is your movie. Starring let's see, Bing Crosby, Rosemary Clooney, Danny Kaye, and Vera-Ellen, correct?
Vera-Ellen, right? Who was from Norwood, Ohio.
Right. We've been to Vera's house, and
Yeah.
she's about a mile away from George Chakiris, where he grew up, right at the Norwood High School. And
Mhm.
George Chakiris, for those who don't know exactly who he is, won an Academy Award for West Side Story. Got
Oh.
his start in White Christmas. There
As
was
a dancer.
as a dancer. A picture was taken with Rosemary's gloves on his shoulder, and that picture gave him his career. He got a contract as soon as that was published. So many women
Oh.
called to find out what his name was. So we feel like it's legitimate because Rosemary went to high school at Western Hills in Cincinnati.
Okay.
So we feel like it's legitimate that we get to claim White Christmas.
Absolutely, you do. We opened up applauding Bob Hope and others for the USO tours, taking a taste of warmth of home to the soldiers. So now, in conclusion, walk us through the Columbia Inn, Pine Tree, Vermont, and what that meant to soldiers in terms of this movie itself as a classic of American holiday.
Well, what's really interesting, people remember White Christmas for a plethora of reasons, whether it's the songs, the actors and actresses, the costumes are pretty iconic. But really, this film is a military appreciation film. It is to honor the sacrifice and service of General Waverly, who is played by Dean Jaggers. And when you look at the scope of the movie, where you start, you're in wartime, all of a sudden you fast forward years later, and he has gone into civilian life. And there's even the funny song, "Gee, I wish I was back in the Army now." And there's a lot of parallel to what's going on now with the discharge of veterans as they try to transition back into regular life.
Right.
And being able to see some of that difficulty, and you see his heartbreak when he gets the letter from the Department of Defense because he has signed up once again for service. Obviously, he's in his elder years, and they basically think it's a joke that he tried to sign back up. And so the crushing look on his face is really reminiscent of some of the issues that we still see today. And so Bing and Danny and Rosie and Vera put on this elaborate show and get all of his old soldiers, as many as they can get in the New England area, to come in and do a huge Christmas Eve celebration on his behalf, which is a surprise. And again, it's about honoring the sacrifice and service. And that's why I love this movie, because it
Mhm.
resonates on so many different levels. But
Mhm.
for us, we also created a program called Operation Waverly. So at various times, different hosting museums. We had a huge program last year in Oshkosh, and the year before that at the Upcountry Museum, where Operation Waverly, which is named after General Waverly, connects the hosting museum to a local veteran project or entity so that we
Mhm.
can utilize the excitement of the exhibit to be able to raise awareness about something that's local. And we do know now, after doing that for a few years, that the ripple effects have been vast and that those entities have continued working together in collaborations. So again, creating a lasting impact, even 70 years later. And we have a book coming out also in 2024.
No
So I
way.
want to plug that for White Christmas. And it'll be a 352 page coffee table book, chock full of items you never knew you needed to know about the making of White Christmas. So its 70th anniversary is going to be pretty big.
Oh, that's going to be huge. That's going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, we had a little episode a couple weeks ago where a lady called us and sent us, her father was the electrician on the set and had given the family the Christmas lights from the tree. She has sent them to me, and when I was looking at them, I
Aw.
said, I don't know that these look 70 years old. And Heather, I said, these look like the ones I had when I was growing up.
I said, well,
Yeah.
you're 70.
Heather goes, you're 70. I said, well, they're real. They're real. So we're excited. We've gotten so many things in the last year that we're excited. It's just going to grow and grow. And I'm 70.
I'm not. Thanks.
And 70 never looks so good, my friend. You're right in the you're right in the you're right
The
in the
zone. That's right.
zone of aging with grace 55 plus, right? Which is why I love talking with you guys. Your Christmas tree looks so beautiful behind you. I'm just gonna put a sign on my set that says ditto.
Ditto, yeah. Well, it really is this season. We
Uh,
always think about the holidays. We think about prepping for the holidays, the stress of the holidays, and we tried to get a leg up around Thanksgiving about putting the tree up. And what we love about this is a tree chock full of memories. Certainly for us, for children, you'll see pictures on it. It's not one of those
aw,
designer trees, but it
yeah.
does contain some ornaments. My company actually does make some ornaments that are inspired by the costumes of White Christmas. And
Oh,
so we realize that Christmas and the holiday time is a special time for families to remember. It's nostalgic. And if it were up to the kids, we would actually have that tree up all year long.
so you have successfully given them the spirit of Christmas as well. Well done.
Absolutely.
Well done, Heather. Well done, Dr. Steve Henry. You guys have been amazing. And one thing I want to say in conclusion is that, Heather, we absolutely love the fact that not only was Veteran Affairs part of your platform as Miss America, but it's also been your lifelong mission, seeing you at state fairs and across the country, promoting and advocating for our citizen soldiers. Thank you for all your work on their behalf.
Well, it's an honor to be able to do. My father is still alive. He's a disabled Vietnam veteran who served in the Marine Corps. And what's really interesting, we were talking about Christmas. He actually went in on Christmas Day, 1967, and was wounded on December 27th, 1967, which
Oh,
was what basically ended his military career. And you think about just that direct connection to the military. And this is something that I'll carry the rest of my life. I mean, Miss America absolutely will last the rest of my life, but being the daughter of a veteran is a title that never goes away.
that's so good. That's so good. For people that want more information about the museum, what is your website? Share that, please.
RosemaryClooney.org.
It doesn't
And
get
they
any.
can also follow us on Facebook. We have a very large and very active Facebook group called the Rosemary Clooney House. People message us all the time.
Well, thank you so much for being true to the spirit of Christmas, especially the White Christmas, the movie starring Bing Crosby, Rosemary Clooney, Danny Kaye, and Vera-Ellen, and of course Rosemary Clooney, which is why we're talking about the Rosemary Clooney House and this amazing museum that Heather French Henry and her husband, Dr. Steve Henry, have put so much time and loving effort into. Thank you, guys, and I'm going to check back with you in 2024 on the book. That'll be our next
All
conversation.
right, we'll save you a copy.
I
Merry
look forward to it.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. Bye-bye.
Please visit my website, awg55.com, to listen to past episodes of Aging with Grace 55 Plus, including purchasing a deck of 35 oversized playing cards for deeper, more meaningful conversations with the seniors in your life or community.